I have to say, when indicted, most people become a ghost. You're lucky if you'll hear from their lawyer. But Roger Stone is not most people. He has decided not only to enter the safe space of the mothership at Fox tonight, he's also willing to come here. Obviously, his lawyers aren't going to want him to discuss the details of the case. We know that. But there's plenty to get into on the merits. Roger Stone, thank you for taking this opportunity, especially on a day like this.
Thanks, Chris. After that last panel, I feel some need to defend myself. I mean, John Dean, a man that I exposed as a perjurer and a liar in my book, Nixon Secret, simply by comparing his Senate testimony, his testimony to the Watergate special prosecutors, and his book, Preet Bharara, who lied to a federal judge about leaking federal grand jury information in the William Walton case, calls me a liar. Wow. Please. And Carl Bernstein, who's the subject of my next book, Woodward and Bernstein, the godfathers of fake news. So I'm glad to be here.
Let's not deal with trading barbs and allegations. Let's deal with what's before us right now.
They beat me up pretty good. I deserve the opportunity. Go ahead.
And that's why you're here tonight. I want you to have an opportunity to address what matters. Panel's not on my show. They're not here to defend themselves either, so let's move forward. You have told me in the past, I do expect that the probe is going to expose me to some type of action at some point. But you never expected what happened at your home this morning. Tell me about that.
Well, first of all, I always said that there could be some process crime.
Yes.
There's still no evidence whatsoever that I had advanced knowledge of the topic, the subject, or the source of the WikiLeaks disclosures. I never received any of the WikiLeaks disclosures. I never communicated with Assange or WikiLeaks other than the limited communication on Twitter direct message, which I gave to the House Intelligence Committee last September, I guess it was. On the other hand, I don't have a valid passport, either that or it's about to expire in a few days. I have no previous record. I do not own a firearm. I am not violent. And there was no need to have 29 FBI agents with assault weapons and sidearms and hand grenades and a battering ram to smash in my front door. They could simply have called my attorney and I would have surrendered voluntarily. My wife is deaf. She was in an upstairs bedroom. I had a concern that she did not know what was going on and could be shot or injured. My dogs are not dangerous. They're tiny, although they were terrorized. So when you don't have evidence, you use theatrics. I think this was an overreaction. And the real proof of it is the judge only hours later gave me a $250,000 surety bond on my own signature. So if you're a flight risk, they wouldn't do that. And
well,
as far as
he could have released you on your own recognizance. He didn't have to give you any bond. But when you say there's no proof, I don't want to dig into the merits. I know the legal counsel you've been given, and I understand it. I'm actually surprised they have you out at all. But when you say they have no proof, Roger, to be honest with you, I have not seen an indictment connected to this probe that has more proof than this one does of communications that you have had that prove that you didn't tell the truth to the Congress, the congressional panel you were before.
False. Every one of those things is out of context. If you go to my website, Stone Cold Truth, or watch any of my interviews, I have actually refuted virtually everything in there. And then there's a bunch of things in there that, frankly, I don't believe are true. No senior campaign official told me to find out anything about WikiLeaks. That doesn't mean Mr. Mueller can't induce somebody to say that, but there'll be no corroboration for it. And no other person in the campaign who's a junior official inquired of what happened. Now, what I did hear from Steve Bannon the day after Assange had a press event on October 1st as to what he said, I responded with two matters of public record. Politico had already reported that he said there would be releases every week for the next following weeks, and that all the U.S. related campaign or election-related material would be released in the weeks before the election.
So the only communication you had with the campaign, just to be clear, Roger, to allow you to respond directly to what's in the indictment, if you're comfortable doing so, you're saying the only communication you ever had with anybody related to the campaign was this one communication you're talking about with Steve Bannon that you're saying is already public information.
It was published by the Times, and I responded to it in great written detail.
So that's
my response to him is entirely public information.
And that was the only communication
and by the way, he
you
then
had?
That's the only one that I recall, and the only one that I can find in my emails. I never discussed this with Donald Trump. So speculation tonight by Wolf Blitzer, by Preet Bharara, by others that Trump directed me to do this or directed someone to direct me to do this. Speculation in the Washington Post that I ever discussed this. Chuck Todd asked me about this on Meet the Press a year ago. I told him no.
That's
George
still your answer.
Stephanopoulos asked me about it several weeks ago. I said, no, it's still my answer.
So
Donald Trump
there's a
and I
100% chance in your mind that nobody can offer any compelling, credible proof that Donald Trump knew about your efforts to get to WikiLeaks.
Nobody can supply any corroborated truth. People can have their testimony composed, particularly if they're looking for a reduction in their sentence. But there is no proof here. Many of these things in the indictment I have already addressed and rebutted in great documented detail. And I have a pretty good idea, even though I have 1 million emails and I have never deleted anything whatsoever. But the idea that they need evidence, they've been in my email, my text messages, my phone calls for 2 years. They have read them to my various associates before the grand jury. The New York Times reported on January 20th that I was under 617, that I was under surveillance.
But that's why I'm wondering why you denied any of these things. You had to know they were surveilling you and they could get your communications when they were talking to you and asking you if you'd been talking to Credico, and you said, no, I've never communicated with them. Didn't you know that they'd be monitoring your communications and they'd get you the way they did?
Here's the irony of that. The text messages that were an old cell phone, which I did not recall, are entire exculpatory. They prove that he was my source, that, as I said, and he has denied, which MSNBC has allowed him to do repeatedly, and that his source was a WikiLeaks lawyer. So yes, I did honestly forget a series of text messages which prove that I was telling the truth.
But even the ones that you were having during the testimony, the same day, you know, that's the one that really kind of jumps the shark. I mean, that they're saying, have you ever spoken to him about it? You say, no, you were talking to him that day. Again, I don't want to dig into the facts with you because I'm respecting your legal counsel.
I don't even, first of all, I don't even know that that's true. But as far as Frank Patangeli is concerned, Mr. Credico is an impressionist. That's what he does. And he does a very funny Frank Patangela imitation. Certainly not an implication that he should kill himself or that he should lie.
But you did tell him that he shouldn't testify, he should plead the fifth, don't turn anything over to them. That's why they're coming after you for tampering.
Context. I think all of those text messages need to be seen in some context.
Okay.
And when they're seen in context, they will see that they're lighthearted, they're not serious.
The only other thing that came up that was, I thought, kind of a bright line distinction was that they were asking you, well, who are you talking to? Who was helping you? Why didn't you want to mention Corsi? Why did you only want to mention Credico? Jerome Corsi says everything in the indictment is true, but why didn't you want to mention him? You would have saved yourself a lot of trouble.
Yeah, but first of all, Mr. Corsi has said a number of things that are not true. Firstly, that a memo that he prepared for me regarding the Podesta's extensive and lucrative business dealings is some part of a cover-up. Covering up what? He never told me that John Podesta's emails had been stolen. There is no corroboration or evidence in writing that proves that. That comes from his memory. He told Chucker Carlson, he told many people. He told Ari Melber, he told everyone he knew. Name one. He certainly didn't tell me, and there's no proof that he did.
But even if he was fabricating all that stuff, Roger, you do have the communications between the two of you. Mueller seems to have proof of it.
You know, in all honesty, I don't believe he was ever in touch with WikiLeaks, and the prognostications he made regarding WikiLeaks on August 2nd all turn out to be incorrect. I don't believe that he had any idea what he was talking about.
So here's the question: has nothing to do.
And he was not a campaign official. So they're trying to criminalize
definitely wasn't a campaign official.
And so they're trying to criminalize legitimate, either journalistic or political inquiry. I don't think that's reasonable.
Well, they're getting you for lying about it. They're not saying that the underlying actions were criminal. They're saying that you lied about it to Congress, and they have the proof on paper. So the question I have is, forget about the merits. Why put yourself out there like this, Roger? You had a chance to change the testimony. Why would you even talk to them in the first place and put yourself at this jeopardy?
As you know, perjury requires both materiality and intent. There is none. But secondarily, where's the Russian collusion, Chris? Where's the WikiLeaks collaboration? Where's the evidence that I received anything from WikiLeaks or Julian Assange and passed it on to Donald Trump or the Trump campaign?
Well, look,
simply does not exist.
I agree with you on those bases. And again, I keep qualifying this because you know I want to keep my word. And I told you in council I wouldn't dig into the merits on this. But the argument would be the coordination is you're trying to find out what's happening. You're telling the campaign so that they, as Corsi was suggesting to you and maybe others, they could coordinate their message to synchronize what they were saying as the WikiLeaks got dumped. And that's why you were trying to find out if they had any more dirt about Hillary Clinton to help your friend in a campaign that you've believed in for a very long time. That might not be a crime, maybe, maybe not, but it is collusion.
But I wasn't doing that, and I will prove that at trial.
And you have said a couple of things already that are important for people. 100%, you never talked to the president about it. You don't believe he knew anything about it. Now, address people's skepticism. He's known you the longest, okay? He's got the deepest relationship with you, second only to Paul Manafort in terms of the population of this campaign, who, of course, you introduced him to, and you suggested him once again to help with the campaign. Why would people believe that his oldest, most trusted advisor was doing something like this for him at the same time that he kept talking up WikiLeaks, and yet he knew nothing about it?
Well, first of all, he can read, he can watch television, and this was getting an enormous amount of coverage. And any suggestion that we did discuss it would be conjecture, would be supposition. But there's no evidence to that effect. And first of all, when you talk to Donald Trump on the phone, in all honesty, he does most of the talking, you do most of the listening. We just never discussed this topic. There's been a great effort, and I've seen it here on CNN, to also conflate the emails released by WikiLeaks and the Hillary Clinton missing emails, which are two completely different things.
Yeah, I would never conflate
had those,
They
never released them.
But they have nothing
to do
with anything.
But others have.
No, well, I would never do that.
Have,
you know, what WikiLeaks took, or whatever was taken and given to them, that's what you seem to want to know about, what was in there that might be of value to the campaign. And I'm just saying it's going to be hard for people to believe that the man who knew you best and longest and trusted you the most wouldn't have known what you were doing on his own behalf. Let me ask you something. You say you will not testify against the president. You would not bear false witness. I think that's an interesting phrase. But you are open to telling the truth. And is there any chance that the truth you have to tell can compromise other people who were a part of the campaign?
Well, certainly not the president. I have possessed no information. I have to know what the circumstances would be, but it's highly unlikely. First of all, this idea that I was in regular contact with the campaign after Paul Manafort left is not true. Frankly, I didn't have a high regard for many of the people working there. The people in the grassroots, yes, but the people in Washington, many of them had no idea what they were doing, and they were not close associates of mine. So this idea that I was trying to curry favor with them, I have no reason to do so. I have a relationship with the president of 40 years.
Right.
So that is a misnomer. There's a New York Times story to that effect, that I was trying to burnish my reputation with the campaign, completely unnecessary and false.
Agreed. I'm not saying regular contact. I'm saying any contact. And you brought up Paul Manafort. Did you have any idea that he had given poll data to one of his friends and he had met with another guy who was so closely connected to Russia about U.S. policy?
No, I never heard of that guy, Kalimnik or whatever.
Right.
I've seen his name in the paper. I was not familiar with him prior to the recent stories. Your second question.
He had also had a secondary meeting with somebody where they discussed U.S. policy vis-a-vis Russia and Ukraine in a way that was very similar to how the party platform had been changed. Were you aware that Manafort was doing any of that?
No, I was not.
So here's my last question for you, Roger. This is a ballsy move that you're making here, coming out and taking on these charges once you've been indicted, especially with what I've read in this indictment. It makes me think that you must believe there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Do you believe that light is not the train, but that it is the president, and he will pardon you for keeping your mouth shut?
I've never had any discussion with him or communication with him regarding that. I have no idea what he might do. The only persons that I have recommended a pardon for is I wrote a number of op-eds as to why I think Julian Assange should be pardoned, because I believe he's a journalist who does the same thing that the New York Times and the Washington Post do. And I've come out very strongly and written the president for a pardon posthumously for Marcus Garvey.
But what about for yourself? Would you accept one?
The only two pardons I feel strong.
Would you accept one?
I don't expect to be convicted, so I'm not going to address it. I don't address hypothetical questions, as you know.
Would you entertain cutting a deal or anything short of going to trial on these charges?
Again, you're asking me to answer a hypothetical question without knowing any of the facts. I know that I'm innocent. My intention is to plead not guilty and to fight the charges. And I've had no discussion with anyone regarding a pardon.
You've never been in this situation before. You've been in a lot of jams over the years, but nothing like this. Are you worried that this is not going to go your way?
Well, I believe in God. I know what I have and have not done. I have a great wife and family that support me. I have to raise $2 million through StoneDefenseFund.com because I'm not a wealthy man. And the legal expenses so far have been very damaging, very devastating. Plus the censorship of my radio show on InfoWars, the censorship of my Facebook page, the shadow banning has made the selling of my books more difficult. So I have to raise a lot of money to defend myself. This is very typical. We saw this with General Mike Flynn, where the legal expenses are such that you end up pleading guilty to some crime which you did not commit. I don't intend to do that.
He admitted, as you know, he admitted lying about a couple of different material matters. But I take your point, and I really appreciate you on a night like tonight doing something that is very atypical, coming out and addressing the charges and the indictment against you, and I appreciate that.
Well, I was up a little earlier this morning than I had planned, so I could use a good night's sleep.
Roger Stone, thank you very much. As you know, we have someone who knows you very well, Kristen Davis, coming on the show to talk about what this means to you and her opinion as well. So there was Roger Stone. There you see Kristen Davis. She worked with Roger Stone. She shares a home with Stone that got searched by the FBI today, and she was questioned by Mueller's grand jury, not Stone. Her reactions next.
Hi, everyone. My name's Mike. I'm the creator of Mox News. And for the last 15 years, I have been telling you that as long as I have the support of the community that I serve, Mox News will post videos forever. And that's the truth. As long as I have your support, no one could ever make me stop. Unfortunately, currently, less than 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% of Mox News viewers ever donate, tip, or contribute anything back. Again, let me make that really clear. Much less than 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% ever give anything back. And to those of you who have donated to Mox News, I want to thank you so much, because it's because of your generosity that we have been able to bring attention to important videos that millions and millions of eyes would have never seen. And I think that that's an amazing thing that we've been able to make happen together. And I can't thank you enough for helping me make that happen. So it's not too late. If you'd like to see Mox News covering the 2020 presidential election, if you can't imagine the 2020 presidential election without Mox News, please, there's still time. You can make a difference. It's easy to make a contribution, donation, or tip. You can go to moxnews.com, or in the text body of this video, there are clickable links to the Patreon page or to the PayPal page. And again, it should take less than 2 minutes to make a donation, and your donation can make a big difference. So I thank you all. Stay cool. One of these days this war is going to end, and it would be awesome if Mox News could be there to celebrate that day with you.